Hi guys, welcome to another IG Live. We're going to be talking about how to manage your taxes today with my very own accountant, Shannon Weinstein. Super excited for this conversation. So I had to call in the reserves and we have my very own, my certified public accountant, Shannon Weinstein. Hey girlfriend, how are you?
Hey, good, thanks. How are you?
Oh my gosh, so excited. Let me tell you, when I put the reminder on my IG stories for this live, I've never seen so many people RSVP, like, holy shit, we need to listen to this conversation. Because
Awesome.
apparently, like, taxes are just stressing everybody the F out. So
Yeah.
thank you for being here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, so my name's Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA. I am usually based in Connecticut, but I'm currently residing in Costa Rica, which,
Hello. Okay, no big deal.
yeah, I absolutely love it. And I help entrepreneurs online, service-based businesses mostly. And I just try to simplify all the stuff that goes along with taxes. It does not have to be an old white guy in a suit helping you. This is all about just empowering you as a business owner with the knowledge you need to be able to save money in taxes because that's what you're entitled to.
Yo, I love that. And I knew, like, right away when I found you, I was like, this girl, she gets it. She's me and her on the same vibe because we're just out here breaking stereotypes about money. And I would love for you to tell folks, first off, why you even became a CPA. Because I feel like it's not one of those careers that I think anybody like wakes up as a kid and is like, oh my God, I can't wait to like do taxes for a living.
Yeah. No, that was my dad's dream. He was like, I can't wait until Shannon does taxes for a living. No, he was a CPA, my dad. And actually, I became an accountant because I lost a bet with him in high school because I was supposed to take classes in high school for business and accounting and typing because that's how old I am. And like how to use Microsoft Access and all that old stuff. And accounting was one of the classes. And they said, you have to take one of these. My dad said, you're going to take accounting. And if you hate it, I'll never ask you to be an accountant again. But if you love it, you have to major in it. And I'm a woman of my word and I'm super competitive, but I actually really enjoyed it. Got like over 100 average in my first month. And the teacher bumped me to honors. And she was like, this girl gets it. This is easy for her. And my dad pulled me aside. I'll never forget this. He pulled me aside and said, you speak a language people don't speak. And if you can make this easy to understand, you can do really well and you'll enjoy it and you'll find passion in it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kudos
Yeah.
to dad. He didn't know what he was starting, but you were out here helping so many people like me. So you specialize in fitness professionals, coaches, like people who are doing like the non-traditional stuff that has a lot of tax implications, but I don't think a lot of us, when we're getting into these different businesses, like even understand what those things are, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, my whole company, which is called Fitnancial Solutions, was born out of me being a fitness instructor part-time. I also teach Zumba, which I know you do too.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to know more fitness professionals and realized that we had a huge lack of education going on in our school systems and in life in general, and equipping people to start businesses and to do it compliantly, mindfully, because it's not like people want to avoid taxes in an illegal way. It's just a lot of us don't know what we don't know, and nobody is really willing to sit down, break it down, and explain it. Like, there was no checklist. There was no, like, how-to guide to all this stuff, and you make it 2 pages into any of these articles online, and you're, like, overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
somebody break it down step by step as you're evolving I wanted to become that for people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think one of the things that I love about you too is that you are like virtually based. So it doesn't matter where you live, anybody can work with you, right? And I know for me, my previous accountants, like they had an office, you had to go there. It was very typical of like what you would associate with a public accounting firm, and you really make yourself accessible. And I think it's super modern, like being able to just do everything digitally. It brings a level of access that other people just haven't provided to me as a business owner in the past.
Yeah, and that's the entire mission. I just want to break it down in a way that is easy to understand.
Yeah.
And I know the folks here are saying that I might be breaking up a little bit, so I'm sorry if I am, but
We'll make it work.
I'll do my best.
Okay. All right. So I want to know, first off, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see entrepreneurs, especially like new business owners, making when it comes to their taxes?
I guess the number one mistake is just avoiding
all things taxes and all things money and not really addressing it head on, kind of thinking that, that you would, you know, that, oh, well, if I put this to the side, I don't have to worry about it. And we wait to worry about it until something happens. And by something happening, it's probably too late to really enact change. Like, you're going to be proactive, not reactive. Don't wait until you have a letter from the IRS to start paying attention. That's my biggest thing. Don't wait until it's a problem to address it. And then the other thing would be taking advantage of all the strategies available to you, and don't be afraid to take advantage of everything that you can, because the tax code is 95% what's not taxable. It's 95% the ways out of taxes. So they went through all this trouble to write this 500 plus page code and about how you can take advantage of not getting taxed on certain things. So find someone who's an expert that can help you strategize. Like, you have to think strategically, not just, oh, well, I just don't want to get audited, because you shouldn't fear an audit if you're doing nothing wrong.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. People hear the word audit and they're like, automatically, I'm going to go to jail. Like, I don't want to deal with my taxes. Maybe if I avoid them, I will not go to jail. And it's like, guys, first off, calm down. Not that serious. There are way bigger things in the world than you screwing up a little bit on your taxes. But there are some ways that we can really be proactive about them. So, like, what are some of your best tips for business owners to, like, set themselves up for success? So when tax time comes, it's not a mad dash to, like, get all our shit together.
Yeah, so the best thing I can do is stay organized from day one, get your bookkeeping up to date. So make sure you have all of your income and expenses logged, make sure that you've got them categorized, and that it's super clear what you're spending money on, and you're telling the story of how your money spent the year, right? So you want to make it clear, where did it go? Where did it come from? And be able to explain that if you're ever questioned by another accountant or the IRS, God forbid, if you ever get audited. But, you know, you just want to make sure you've got everything ready so that you're not scrambling in February, March to update everything for the whole year. It's just, it takes a few seconds or a few minutes every month to update things. And it's really not that much time spent versus the hours that you could possibly spend after the year's over.
Yeah, that's such good advice. I, for the longest, like, justified that I didn't make enough money to pay for something like QuickBooks or an accountant, because it's just like, yes, this is not a real business. But once you're at that point, it's already too late. Like, because you are building now this system for a huge machine that you built when you could have had it in place for when it was a little tiny thing, right? And
exactly.
that's
And
a
you're
lesson I'm learning.
You're a business. The moment you make money from selling something, or the moment you intend to make money from selling something, whether it's a service or a product, you're in business. So you have to behave accordingly and hold yourself to that standard, because I hear so many times people say, but it's not a legit business yet. And I said, well, what to you is a legit business? Because a lemonade stand is a legit business. So you have a legit business, and you have certain responsibilities, but you can also take all the advantages that come along with that too.
One of the biggest mistakes that I made initially was pretending like estimated tax payments were optional. And so, can you first talk about what those are and, like, why they're so important to pay attention to as a business owner?
Yeah. So if you guys are familiar, I mean, if you guys have been employees before, you know that the government takes out of your paycheck a certain amount of income tax every single paycheck. And you're used to that, right? Like, you don't actually make your whole salary. You make a little bit less because of the taxes. And we just kind of got used to that since we were kids, you know, working at McDonald's or Walmart or wherever, right? Like, you just kind of learn that that's how life goes. So for entrepreneurs, business owners, self-employed, what the government did was they said, well, they don't make paychecks. How else can we get installment payments from them during the year, so we don't have to wait till April for all their taxes, because they're probably not going to save up enough money to pay all that. So we need to create some type of installment plan. And this is what they did. They created the quarterly estimates, which both helps them manage the inflow of their tax money, but also helps you as a business owner to regulate and control the cash flow, so that you're able to pay installment throughout the year instead of just dumping a 5-figure tax bill at the end of the year. Because who has that kind of cash at the end? Who's setting that aside, right? No. So you definitely don't want to get blindsided by that. And I know that a lot of business owners in their first couple of years completely get blindsided by that, because they don't realize that that bill is going to come, or they think it's going to work itself out, or the accountant will just figure it out. But at the end of the day, you're going to end up you're signing the line. You have to know what to expect come tax time. And if you have a really good accountant and a good relationship with them, then you want to make sure you're finding someone that you can trust to meet with during the course of the year many times, not just once, because you want to plan ahead and know what to expect so that you're not surprised. A lot of my clients, we meet in August and I say, you're probably going to owe $10,000. And they say, okay, so $2,000 now, next month, the month after, the month after. And then they can create their own installments so that they're not hit with 10 grand in April.
Yeah. And so what are those deadlines on the quarterly basis? When do we have to pay those?
So the deadlines for individuals are April 15th. And so here's what's funny. 2020 was all different. So I have to remember.
Yeah.
So the traditional deadlines are April 15th, June 15th, September, and January 15th. So they're not exactly quarter ends. They're a little bit all over the place, but you still have until January 15th, which is coming up, to make the last estimated payment for 2020.
Okay. Very good. And so it's just a matter of like going on the IRS website and clicking on the little pay now thing, and you're putting it towards the year that you're paying, which is 2020. And just make your payment and keep records, right? Because you have to report that to your accountant so that they know that you've made these payments already.
And don't forget federal and state.
Yes,
a lot of people think the IRS is one thing and it talks to everybody, but you've got the federal, which is the IRS, which is the federal government, and then you've got your unique state, and you have to go to your state's website, your state's Board of Accountancy, or excuse me, Board of Revenue or Department of Revenue, and you have to go and make sure that you're up to date with those too, and they don't talk to each other, so you have to make sure that separately you're checking in with both.
Got it. There's so many good questions coming in, guys. If you want to put them in the little question bubble so that they don't get missed in the comments, I would love for you to do that, because we want to answer as many questions as possible while we have Shannon on the line. So another question I have is, there's a big misconception about like who needs a CPA, right? Some people are just like, oh no, I can do it myself. So how do you know when you need a professional?
So I like to say everyone needs a professional in some capacity. The question is, what services do you need? Because CPAs can provide a whole different myriad of services. So it could be bookkeeping. It could be looking at cash flow planning. It could be strategizing your tax planning. It could be just tax preparation. So it's understanding what your needs are as a business owner based on the life cycle that you're in and how you're evolving. So for newer business owners, I offer, for example, coaching that help them get up started and have a foundation for their business and walk them through the startup process. So what do I need? What do I need for a payment processor? What do I need for a bank account? What do I need to do here? How do I price? We go through all of that in my course that's all about a new entrepreneur. But then if you work with me one-on-one, now we're talking tax planning, maybe cash flow, looking at the data you've collected as a business owner and helping you make decisions with it. So it's really a matter of how in-depth you want them to go and what types of services they offer and you need. It's really just about making that match the right way and finding someone that you trust, because you could be as early as making your first sale. And I would say having a CPA in your corner is better to set the right financial structure before before activity starts flowing in, because you never know when you're going to just have that, crazy launch or that thing that just strikes and works.
Yeah, that's such a good point. One of the questions that a lot of people ask is like, how do you even find a professional to work with? How do you screen people? What are some questions that you should be asking when you're looking for somebody to help you with your taxes?
And that's like my number one thing is, please interview them, because they're interviewing to be your accountant, and you should be looking at them like you should be qualifying them. You should not just go right to the family friend, the local person, and they may be great, but you shouldn't just assume that because they're close by, they're perfect for you. So you want to make sure you're finding someone that you can trust, that works either in your industry or is familiar with what you do, and somebody who understands your goals and wants to learn about your goals, not just giving you generic advice. But I have a whole list of questions. I actually have an Instagram post that's all the questions you should ask your CPA. And I recommend taking a look at that, because that is like my key list of things I want people to ask me.
That's great. Okay. So maybe not everybody's a business owner. Maybe there are some people that are just like, I'm just fine doing the W-2 thing. Is there any advice for like optimizing their taxes?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of different things you can do as a W-2 employee. One thing is a health savings account. You can do an HSA. You can do retirement contributions. So you can contribute to a traditional IRA, which is pre-tax money, and you can take advantage of those even beyond the year end. So you can still take advantage of those different tax strategies now for 2020. So the door isn't closed yet for you to be able to do that and minimize your taxes. But I will say that having some type of side hustle or business is a great gateway to saving even more. But there are definitely some things like the retirement, an FSA, HSA that you can take advantage of even as an employee.
That's great. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about business entities. There are always questions about when is the right time to start an LLC? Am I okay being a solopreneur? Like, where's that line? What makes sense to make that investment? Because there is some monetary investment. You got to do paperwork and stuff like that. So when does it make sense to look at that?
Yeah. So, it makes sense to decide that as soon as you decide you want to be in business. So do you want to operate as a sole proprietor, which, by the way, you're operating as a sole proprietor if you do nothing to file an entity. So a sole proprietorship is really the default position if you don't do anything. Then you can choose if you want to start an LLC. An LLC or a corporation, really, but an LLC provides you that liability protection to separate your personal assets from your business assets in the event that anything should happen if you get sued, or if for any reason those assets, as I say, come under attack. So if anything should happen, you know that you're separating those two sets of assets. That's really the benefit it provides. But from a tax perspective, the LLC, the single member LLC, is taxed exactly the same as the sole proprietor. So really, there's no difference from a tax standpoint if you make that decision. That's more of your personal preference or a legal decision if you want that liability protection. But for the intent of tax preparing, it's just the same thing. But an LLC does position you well, or a corporation, to take advantage of more advanced tax saving strategies like the S Corp, which I know that is something that we've been talking about.
Yeah, so let's talk about the S Corp. It's like the buzzword in entrepreneurial circles here on Instagram. Everybody's like, you need an S Corp. You need first of all, nobody knows what the hell they're even talking about when they're saying you need an S Corp, because it's not necessarily a thing, right? It's a designation. Right. So can you talk about what that is and why what are the tax benefits associated with having that designation as an S Corp?
Absolutely. So I like to joke around and say that the S Corp is an outfit for your business. It doesn't change what the business is. You're not doing plastic surgery. You're just changing the outfit. So it's okay. Like, it's just something that you tack on. It's called a federal tax election. So you can be a C corporation taxed as an S corporation. You can be an LLC taxed as an S corporation. An S corporation is actually not an entity. It's just you're taxed as an S corporation. It was created for that. And how it works is under subchapter S, which is where it comes from, you get to reduce your self-employment taxes. It's basically, I call it the immunity badge. You basically get to elect this tax status, and you're only paying self-employment tax on the salary you take, not on all of your profit. So you get to actually split out, instead of one bucket as an LLC with all the profit you make, you get to split it into two buckets where it's the salary you make, the profit that you make, and then your salary. And the self-employment tax only applies to your salary. So it helps you save a ton of money in taxes just by splitting those two things out.
So I'm actually in the process of doing that this year. So I had to set myself up as an employee of my business, which involved a lot of paperwork. I was like, this is why people don't do this.
I know, but there's 5-figure tax savings on the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've never filled out so much paperwork in my life. And, but yeah, now I'm an employee of my business. So now I get a paycheck. And then the rest of the money is classified as what, like a distribution? Is that what the technical term is?
Yeah, it's like a profit distribution, but it's the same thing as if you had an LLC. It's just what's left over. It's the business's profit or net income.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see the impact that it's going to have on my taxes for 2021, because for 2020, I was a 6-figure business for the first time. And I was like, shit, this was probably the year to do the S Corp thing, but it's fine. We live and we learn.
And the S Corp isn't for everybody. It's not for everybody. I like to say there's really 3 things that you need to look out for. One is you should do an S Corp if you're making less than $30K net profit. because that's really where it tips the scale and you start benefiting from the tax savings. Because as you said, Janice, you have to do a bunch of paperwork. You have to file a separate tax return. You have to pay for a payroll service. And those costs can add up, and it just doesn't become worth it if you're only saving a couple $100. But once you're really rolling and you're over about, I'd say 30K is a good mark to call your CPA and say, hey, I think I'm ready for S Corp. And that's 30K net profit, not top line, but the profit.
After your expenses and everything have been
after the expenses.
deducted.
Yes, exactly. So that, and then you have to be ready for the responsibilities of doing a payroll service, running payroll, having a separate tax return, and you have to have really good books and records. So you basically have to, I like to say, you can't have a puppy without taking it out, feeding it. You can't have all the fun without the work. You have to do a little bit of those things on the back end. So if you're not ready for that yet and your business needs maturing, that's when I would say, wait for the S Corp.
And what does it look like for actually like registering or having that designation? What's the process look like?
Oh, it's super easy. I was actually surprised when I learned what the process was. It's basically a 2 to 3 page form that your accountant fills out or that you fill out. And you just say, I would like to be taxed as an S corporation, essentially. And if you file that before March 15th of the year in which you want to be one. So for example, if you guys are interested, you could file it anytime between now and March 15th for 2021. So that means that you would be treated as one for 2021. And it's really easy to do. You can mail it or you can fax it to the IRS because they still use fax machines. And then you'll get an approval and then you can just carry on as an S Corp. It's really that easy.
Very cool. Oh my gosh. So much pregame on this live, guys. I'm so excited. Okay. So we have a ton of questions in here. So let's get some of these on the screen.
Let's go.
All right. Is there a penalty if you don't pay quarterly and just do once a year in April? I will say yes, there is, because I got that penalty.
Denise says firsthand, yes, there is. Yes, there is. It's called an underpayment penalty. It's not that crazy high, but it's completely avoidable just by timing the payments well. So if you wait till April, as opposed to paying it now before January 15th, you're going to get taxed with maybe even a couple hundred extra dollars that you don't need to be paying. So I would say, when in doubt, talk to your accountant and pay what you can, because that's better at chipping away the balance and reducing the penalty.
Absolutely. Every dollar counts, y'all. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How important is it to work with a CPA that understands your online business?
I'd say it's pretty important because a lot of CPAs don't quite get the whole online thing, or they may not understand the nature of the expenses as ordinary and necessary to run an online business, or not know, like, you know, I was going to say Zoom, because Zoom was not that popular a year and a half ago.
Right.
But now everyone knows what Zoom is. But when people would see Slack, or they would see these other apps and software that we're using to run online businesses, it's like, what is that? It just definitely helps cut down the translation. If someone understands your business, and they can also look for great opportunities for you and ask the right questions to get down to your expense deductions.
Yeah. Great point. All right. I've heard quarterly CPA meetings are best. Is that accurate?
They are better than annual or not meeting at all. You have to find a cadence that works for you. So you have to know when you're going to need help, and you can always control when you need to talk to your CPA. Maybe you got a letter, maybe there's something that happened, or you're thinking of starting a new business or taking on a partner or hiring someone. Those decisions should have your CPA's input as well, just to verify and make them aware that you're thinking about doing these things. So make them aware of life events, make them aware of big business events, so that they can advise you accordingly and feel like they're part of the process.
Okay. I got a little side hustle in 2020. How vital is it to report it? You know, there's a lot of these people that are like, oh, I'm taking the money in under the table, so I don't need to tell anybody about this. What are your thoughts? Yeah, exactly. Anything that is said on this live is for educational purposes only. Disclaimer.
Exactly. No, there's no individual tax advice, despite the fact that I am a CPA. I'm not individually telling you anything to do. That's why I say not all this advice is for everybody. So you got to talk to your person. A little side hustle in 2020. How vital is it to report it? If you made, there's typically a threshold of about $400. To put it on the Schedule C, but if you made money, it's always better to report it. Claim all of the income that you made, but claim all the expenses you're entitled to, and you'll be fine.
That's great. There's a question here in the chat before we go to the next one in the Q&A box. Do you have to make a certain amount of money to claim expenses?
So if you haven't made, so this actually happens a lot with our newer entrepreneurs. If you started a business this year and you're like, well, I have my legal costs for my LLC, I haven't, like, I've paid for all these things, coaching courses, but I haven't made any income yet. It's okay. You can deduct up to $5,000 of startup expenses in your first year. And then your accountant can help you. If there's more than that, they can help you figure out how to carry that, or how to treat it on your taxes, but that's more individualized. But if you have under $5,000, you can absolutely claim that as startup expenses.
Okay, good to know. All right, are services like H&R Block good enough for taxes if you have a side hustle or LLC?
I would say they can be good enough if it's simple and you have good books and records, because the H&R Block folks, and I completely respect all storefront softwares, all that stuff, and I actually recommend it to people instead of me if they don't need that extra layer. But here's the thing. They're going to enter the information you give them. They're not going to question you. They're not going to ask you anything. They're not going to look for more deductions. They're not going to think strategically with you as much as a CPA would. So if you're looking for someone to go in and like stroke the keys and enter in all the data that you have, by all means, that's what they're there for, to help you save time. Yeah. But you have to know that they're not going to be thinking like 3 years down the line for your business, right? Like you don't even know if you're going to get them the next year. They're still going to work there. So you have to really be mindful of, is this what I need right now? Is that okay? Is that really all I'm looking for? Is someone to prepare and enter in the data? And usually that works well for simple tax returns.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Now, do those firms help you, like if you get audited because of whatever was entered in the form, or you have to hire somebody separately for that?
That's a really good question. I'm not 100% sure what their policies are, but there might be something you can purchase with representation services optionally.
Okay. How much does a CPA cost?
Oh man. That is such a vast array of services and prices. I think it depends if they work for a firm, work for themselves. Like the prices can vary drastically, along with regional pricing. So if you're looking for like a big giant firm in the middle of New York City, they're going to cost more than your mom and pop shop in Oklahoma. That's just a fact. Yeah. So it's a huge range, but a lot of CPAs bill hourly, and the industry in general is kind of moving away from that hourly billing model and into more of a either membership model or more of a lump sum value billing model, so that you're not really seeing a bill every time that we log an hour. That's not what I would want for my clients. I don't want you to think, Janice, when you call me that you're going to get a bill for that. I don't like that model anymore.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the cost of your CPA is tax deductible, right? When you're a business owner. So don't stress too much about it, because you're just finding another way to pay less taxes.
Exactly. Yeah. Any hired help that you make for your business, whether that's a CPA or a lawyer or anything, that is completely tax deductible as legitimate business expenses too. Yeah. Including your tax prep.
Okay. Does switching accountants trigger an audit? What happens during an audit, and what are the potential ramifications?
That's a great question. So switching accountants does not trigger an audit in and of itself. What could trigger an audit is if the new accountant doesn't look at the old return and does something completely drastically different that calls attention. So if they're using different codes, if they're using a different name, if they're not following at least the same storyline. So you remember those games we played as kids where like you had to say the next word in the story and then like piece together a whole thing? I say that that's what it feels like when I take on a new client and I'm like, okay, what word did they say last, so that I can say something that makes sense. So what was the last thing that you did in your return, so that your new CPA can pick it up and pick up where you left off, and tell the story in a flow. So that's really what I would focus on. Now, what happens during an audit, I think really what all they're doing is, if you want to really demystify it, is IRS agents who are basically normal people like you and me trying to pay a mortgage. Their job is to go find as much money as they can that could have been unclaimed income from your tax return, and negotiate it to something that you agree on, collect the money and leave, because they have to go in and out as fast as possible to get the audit done. They don't want to stick around and keep asking questions. They want to see if they can settle and leave. So you're going to want to have somebody on your side who can help negotiate or do an offer and compromise with you if you end up with a high tax bill. But also, if you end up with an audit, you just have to have enough good books and records to support the decisions that were made, and work with the tax preparer that helped you, so that it's really clear why you made the decisions that you did. The first thing that they look for though is bank statements. So that's why I always preach, keep your business and personal separated, because then you're not going to welcome them in to look at your whole personal bank statements. You can just say, nope, here's my business, go look at it. And they can't go to the personal unless they have questions on the personal return. Mm-hmm. So you want to keep them where it's clean and it's only business so that they don't question anything else. And then the ramifications, I mean, it can vary. It's mostly them trying to claw back tax money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unless you're like, you know, a celebrity that hasn't paid millions of dollars in taxes and then you're going to jail. But
right. Everyone thinks they're going to jail over $18. It's not going to happen.
It's because of like Mike, the situation from the Jersey Shore. Everybody's like, oh my God, tax evasion. I'm going to jail. My life is over. I'm like, guys,
yeah, like you're not the situation. You're not Wesley Snipes. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Absolutely. I think we answered this question, but for anybody who joined late, is there a reason not to file an S Corp?
Yeah, I mentioned if you're not, you know, don't get a puppy if you can't take care of it. So that means you have to be ready to file payroll. You have to have good books and records, and you should be making a profit of at least $30K.
Yep. Great. Okay. Let's see. Can you set up an LLC for real estate if you already purchased the properties in your own name?
You can, because an LLC is, you'd want to transfer those assets to the LLC to make sure they're protected. But you can absolutely do that. That's something that you can definitely transition. But for tax purposes, like I said, an LLC and sole prop are treated the same. So you just want to make the decision if you want to hold them in an LLC. The only thing is that if you hold them in an LLC, you could be subject to the self-employment tax. So you want to make that decision mindfully with your accountant, whether that makes sense for you.
Yeah, I would also suggest talking to an estate planning attorney just to make sure that you're looking at it from that perspective as well. Like there are a lot of situations when we're talking about taxes and assets and things that require multiple professionals versus one. So make sure you're looking at something from all the different angles.
Yeah, that's a great point, Janice. And it's really about scope of practice. So if you're looking at personal finance, you know, people who follow you and you know that if you're interested in investing, personal finance, retirement planning, that is like your certified financial planner or money coaches who specialize in personal. CPAs can do a whole bunch of different things. So you want to find someone with the right specialty based on what you're looking for. And like I said, in industry also is a big factor in that.
Yeah. All right, let me go through the chat. So for the $5,000 startup cost deduction, how does that work for a business that was started in 2020, but the startup costs are also rolling into 2021? Like they're still not profitable.
Gotcha. So you can take all the expenses for your business once you're earning income, right? Like that's not a problem, but you can take up to 5,000 startup costs in your first year. So if your first year was 2020, you can take up to 5,000 without seeing any income on it. They just cap it at that. So you're not just taking crazy deductions without any actual money coming in. So then in 2021, hopefully once you start making money, that's just a normal year. So those just are regular business expenses that you'd have in the course of business.
Got it. Okay. Let's see some more questions here. If you have startup expenses from 2020, but have not created your business entity, how do you claim the expense?
So you're claiming them as a sole proprietorship. So if you don't have a business entity yet, you're just claiming it as a sole proprietorship using your social security number, and you're filling out what's called a Schedule C. So Schedule C, as in Charlie, is your tax forms. It's about 2 pages for a single member LLC or a sole proprietor. Like I said, they're exactly the same in the eyes of the IRS. So even if you don't have a business entity, it's still the exact same treatment.
Got it. Okay. Another question here. What are your thoughts on keeper tax? I utilize them and their rep is good, but I wanted your thoughts.
I actually don't know keeper tax. I have not seen them before. So I'd be interested to know what they provide.
So I'm an affiliate with them, and basically they help you flag what your potential business expenses are in case you're not like really good at tracking those. So I think it's good for people that just don't really know how to identify what's a business expense. They'll flag them automatically and give you an estimate for your taxes. And I believe you can integrate them with your accounting software, whether that's like a QuickBooks or something, and kind of log that information in there. So yeah, I say, you know, if it's a cheap thing that's going to help you manage your money better versus like just putting stuff in an Excel file that you're never going to look at, like take a look at what your options are, right?
Yeah, I'm a fan of anything proactive for you to find more deductions. So whether that's keeper tax or whether that's hiring a professional, go for it.
Yep. All right, guys. Any other questions? Pop them into the Q&A section now. All right, we got some more coming through. Let's see. What's the best way to add a sole proprietor business to an LLC with S Corp? I don't even know if that question makes sense, but I'll let you.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. So if you have an LLC taxed as an S corporation and you want to add another business under that umbrella, you can either add a DBA, which is called a doing business as, under your LLC. Janice is very familiar with this because you operate a business that has a ton of different arms and different revenue streams, and you talk about that a lot on here. So if you're looking for additional revenue streams, what I'd ask is how different those revenue streams are and if you need to create a separate LLC. And if you do, you can do that. But I would definitely strategize that with your accountant because there's a ton of fact patterns that would really make a difference in my advice on that one.
Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Can you include your startup costs in year 2 or 3 of your business?
So startup costs are basically the regular business expenses that they allow you to take because you don't have any income. So if you don't have any income in year 2 or year 3 still, what happens is if you have 3 consecutive years of losses or no income, but you're trying to claim expenses, the IRS can flag that as, she just has an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to be careful about claiming losses in multiple years in a row in your business. And if you don't have any income, what will happen is they'll say that's really a hobby. You can't claim those expenses. And that's okay. But you really want to be mindful of that when you're starting your business. I mean, you should want to make money as fast as possible, but they want to see that you're making a reasonable effort to earn income. And I realize too, and I've talked about this with my clients, that 2020 should be like a gimme, like a ball instead of a strike. Like, yeah, like the 3 strikes you're out. I'm like, that's a ball. Like, please don't count 2020 ever because everyone's going to have a loss. Not everybody, but I feel like if that was your strike 3, it shouldn't count.
Yes, no, absolutely. You know what I find? It's funny out here. I don't know how many people know this, but I live in the Tampa Bay area, and this is the home of the most strip clubs in the United States. Very random, but the strip clubs change names very frequently, and I'm wondering if like these business owners are like doing the 1-2 year profitability, then they're like reporting the loss, then they start a new business, they reopen it at the same location, same people work there, but it's a different name. There's a lot of weird stuff going on here, but I feel like that's part of that.
People absolutely do that, or they do that to avoid payroll because then they're not in business long enough to do things. So it's people do a lot of stuff, and it could be legitimate ownership change, but
most of the time it's probably not.
Probably not.
So there's people on here that have been students of mine, whether it's through courses or workshops, and they're using the information that they get from those workshops to start their businesses. Are the costs of those workshops deductible for them as a business expense?
Absolutely. So anything that's bettering you and making you a better business owner and making your business better is typically a business expense. I like to say anything ordinary and necessary in the course of business, but that includes your consulting, coaching, skill sets that you need to run your business. So trainings, education, absolutely.
Okay, we have a question here. What's the best thing to start, an LLC or a corp? I don't know a lot about corporations, and I'm kind of wondering too, like what the benefit is of that structure versus the LLC.
There's different strategies to both. I think the LLC you should start if you're focused more on the protecting of the assets, like the liability protection, or if you're just starting out and you don't really need a corp. A corp is typically for like maybe a wealthier individual who wants to manage how the money is being distributed, whether it's through salary, distributions, things like that. It's a bit more advanced. Like you can do it, but you want to definitely talk to your accountant because it's a very individualized decision. I just happen to see more LLCs lately than C corporations.
Yeah, and they have a different tax payment schedule, I believe.
They do. They have a different estimated well, they did have a different estimated tax schedule, and then they changed the deadlines around. So
okay.
Yeah, so you're going to want to just make sure that those align with the entity that you have and that the entity that you have aligns with your goals, because I know a lot of folks who start, by all means, just don't start an entity just because someone told you to. You have to know the reason why. Don't go on Facebook and be like, I need an LLC because like Susie K 123 told me I should do that.
Right. Yes, that's when you call the professionals, y'all.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about your course that is closing enrollment soon? Because I feel like you're providing so much valuable information and I don't want folks to miss out on the opportunity to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to work with me right now is if you're a new business owner, side hustler, that it's perfect for you. So I'm doing a 6-week intensive where we're walking through all of these different pieces alongside of you, where I'm going to have more hands-on work with your business. We're doing 6 weeks. You get access to my online course. You get a private Facebook group for all your questions. And we have 4 live phone calls with me because I just saw Danny. I don't get a perm because you saw it on MySpace. Dead.
Yes.
I love this. So yeah, perfect timing. So yeah, it's a 6-week course. You get lifetime access to the course materials and the Facebook group. So you're always kind of in the know and catching up. So that is kicking off on Monday. On the 18th, we start and it's over half full. So we are capping it at 10 entrepreneurs so that I can be hands-on and work with you in your business. And it's a group. So you can also do it one-on-one with me and you can also do it self-study, but the group has been my favorite because you never know what other people are going to ask because you don't know what you don't know. So having other people asking questions can provoke your curiosity and help you learn so much faster.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I'm doing my first group coaching course now and it is the best time. Like there's so much power in community and learning about other people's experiences, learning about what they're doing, what they did wrong, so you can avoid those things. And so that's really awesome. Somebody's asking, how do you sign up?
So go to my Instagram profile. I'm sure it's somewhere on here.
Yes.
And click the link in my bio. That's the page. Or you can always DM me. You can also text me. There's a little text button in my Instagram profile. So you can message me. I will be around all weekend from now until it kicks off, answering all of these questions.
And for folks that want to find out more about your firm, where would it make sense to find you?
You can head over to my website. So if you click the link in my bio, that's the coaching program, but it's fitnancialsolutions.com. And you can check out what we offer there for services if you're interested in working one-on-one, and more info on the coaching program as well.
Awesome. Shannon, before we hop off the call, because I mean, this has been amazing. There's so much information here and we are going to be reposting this. So make sure to watch this, share it with people that you think will get value out of it. Make sure you follow both of us. Tell us why you're in Costa Rica, because I find that story to be like super inspirational and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of folks.
Thank you. So I told you about my dad who was pivotal in my decision to take on my career. Now, my father and my husband's father have both passed away from pancreatic cancer. And my dad never got to see my firm evolve, which is unfortunate, but or my fitness journey or any of that. So I hope I'm making him proud with what I'm doing right now. And Jason's father, my husband, just passed away in July, and we had bought this house with the intent of retiring him down here to spend his last months. So the house wasn't ready yet, but we are down here now, and we will be spreading his ashes down here actually, so that he got to come down and visit because they love to vacation here, his parents. So we had this firm belief, and this was really what was the final decision for us to buy here, was retirement isn't guaranteed. Both of our fathers worked until the day that they passed. They were at work the week before they were both in the hospital. So never waste a minute with the people that you love. Never waste a minute doing anything but what you enjoy. By all means work, but don't work away your life and think you have to work solid and then you get to play, because the future is not a guarantee.
Absolutely. I don't know a more powerful message that we can leave with you guys tonight. Shannon, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, your inspiration, all of this information that you shared with us. Y'all see why I'm working with her. I mean, she knows what the hell she's talking about. So I hope that if you've been in the market for somebody who you want to entrust with your business, make sure you take a look at Shannon's services. She offers a bunch of different services through her accounting firm. And thank you again for your time. Super excited to be on this journey, having the support of someone like you. So thank you.
And thank you for being such a great client. I love having clients like you who are implementers, proactive, and all about the education. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your great questions. And until next time, stay poderosa. Bye.